Hey, it's Kyle here, and today I'll be reviewing From a Certain Point of View, Return of the Jedi, which is 40 short stories celebrating the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. This might make me a not so good Star Wars book nerd, but this is actually the first of the Certain Point of View books I've ever read. I've always heard great things about them, but every time I think I'm getting to the point where oh, I don't have a Star Wars novel to read at the moment, I'll get one of the From a Certain Point of View books. A new Star Wars novel comes up, and then I get to reading that, and I just kept on putting it off and off and off. But I always heard great things about these books. I kind of wanted to read one at some point, I just never got around to it. But early this year, I got this book as a gift. I was like, awesome, I'll finally get a chance to read one of those, and I'm glad I did. I really enjoyed it a lot. I've read other collection of short stories, just not set in the Star Wars universe, and I really enjoy them. I think the ones I've read in the past have usually been either like, here's some of the best sci-fi short stories from this certain year, or I've read a few from some of my favorite authors like Ray Bradbury or Isaac Asimov. And I think for all those, usually, to me, a good mark of a great collection of short stories is you enjoy the majority of them, because I've never read a collection of short stories where I absolutely loved every single short story. And I also really love it in these collection of short stories when authors try different things, which is why I typically never enjoy every single short story in a collection, because a lot of times they're just trying very different and unique ideas, and occasionally one of those unique and different ideas is just not going to hit the mark with you. It might hit the mark with somebody else, but just not with you. I almost have a feeling like if you read a collection of short stories and you love them all, the author or authors were just playing it a little bit safe and kind of being maybe a little bit unexperimental. Because I think with the collection of stories, that's when to try different stuff, to be silly, weird, wacky, maybe explore some characters you typically wouldn't, or ideas you typically wouldn't, or writing styles you typically wouldn't in a full-fledged novel. And I think that's what happened in this book. I really love what the authors did. They explored some ideas and some characters I never would have thought of being explored in this collection of short stories. Some were very silly, some were very serious. I enjoyed the vast majority of them. So one, I would say if you love Return of the Jedi, and maybe you typically don't read Star Wars novels, and I would say this for any of the collection of short stories from a certain point of view, this maybe is a good way for you to kind of read some Star Wars without committing to actually reading a full novel. Because a lot of times when you're reading the novels, you're going into these series, you're like, well, if I like this, I'm not committing to reading 5, 8, 10, 12 books. And I know that can be daunting for some people, especially people that are not necessarily huge readers or don't want to read nothing but Star Wars. I think these collection of short stories, From a Certain Point of View, gives you a chance to kind of explore the book side of Star Wars without committing to reading 5, 10, 8, 12, 15 books. You might notice there's some post-it notes in here. I just flagged some of my favorite short stories. So instead of kind of talking about the book in general, I thought I would briefly just highlight a few of my favorite. Any work worth doing is kind of talking about the building of the Death Star. Found that one very interesting. And I should say, if you're not familiar with From the Certain Point of View books, they kind of take characters or events from the movies and develop short stories around them. So the book is actually ordered in the same order the events in the Return of the Jedi happen. So you get some from point of view from major characters like Lando, some from characters they're so minor, don't even really have a name. And the author's like, that character in the background looks interesting. Let me write a short story about that. Next up, you have The Plan, which is a story about the individual who eventually becomes Jabba's Beastmaster. And we see him in the movie as the individual who's crying when the Rancor is killed by Luke. And this story is very, very interesting. A few of the short stories in here, you read them I wouldn't mind a full novel about this character. The author does such an amazing job developing this individual, making you care about him, making you understand why in the movie, when you see him crying after the Rancor is killed by Luke, you understand exactly why he's doing that. Absolutely love this one, and this might have been one of my overall complete favorites in the entire collection. Next up, you have My Mouth Never Closes, which I thought was a very cool and clever short story about the Sarlacc pit from the point of view of the Sarlacc. And this is one of those, this is the type of a story that works in collection of short stories. writing an entire story from the point of view of the Sarlacc would not work in a novel, or would not work in an animated series or a TV show or a movie. This is an idea it could only work in a collection of short stories. And also when, if you pitch me like, oh, we're going to do a collection of short stories from about the events of Return of the Jedi, in a million years I never would have guessed, oh, like, I bet you one of the authors will write a short story from the point of view of the Sarlacc. And I actually love this one. It's very funny, very interesting, and I really enjoyed it a lot. And again, this to me gives kudos to the author for trying something different, and it, for me, working. Kernels and Husk is, although a very interesting short story from the point of view of one of the Emperor's kind of advisors, and kind of giving you a point of view like, how does somebody reach this point, and what are their view of the Emperor, what are their view of the other Emperor's kind of yes men, and does this person, even though they are one of the yes men themselves, do they view themselves as a yes man, or do they think they're on the same level playing field as the Emperor? So I really enjoyed this one, and this is another one I thought, like, to me this could actually work as a longer story. I enjoyed it a lot. One Normal Day is a short story about Wicket, which is probably, I think, everybody's best known Ewok, and it's basically talking about like how he just wanted to have, I think from our point of view in the modern world, like a lazy day. He just doesn't want to do anything. He just wants a normal day, not any adventures, nothing weird and wacky, nothing exciting to happen. He just wants kind of an average day. And the events of the Star Wars story does not enable him to have an average, normal day. And it kind of puts you in an interesting mindset when Wicket interacts with Leia for the first time. From this story point of view, like what was going through his mind when he met Leia. So it's very, very cool. I liked it a lot. So next up you have The Buy-In, which is a very cool short story. The main character is Norm Wexley, one of the pilots on the attack of the Death Star, but it's basically the night before the attack on the Death Star. And I found this short story very moving because you basically have all these pilots knowing that basically tomorrow the huge percent of them are probably going to die. I think a lot of them are probably reflecting on the first attack of the Death Star, where very few pilots survived. Almost everybody died. Even though it was a victory, they know most people that actually participated in that attack had to sacrifice their lives to make that victory possible. So I think the ones that even are optimistic, like we might win tomorrow, but there's still a good chance I might die. And it's a very interesting short story that kind of explores how the different pilots and different personalities deal with this thought. Some are trying to joke around and have fun. Other ones are just very serious and moody and are trying to completely plan out everything tomorrow to kind of maximize their chances of success, but also their chances of survival. Some have basically accepted, I'm going to die tomorrow. Other ones like, no, there's no way I'm going to die tomorrow. Very moving, very well written short story that I loved a lot. The Ballad of Nata is a very moving short story about this Ewok who basically is trying to figure out their place in the tribe. And eventually they kind of come about that they're going to be the tribe's storyteller and keep the memories of the tribe alive through these stories they tell, through this oral tradition that so many tribes in our own world's history have. With the individuals, it's one person's job to kind of keep the entire history of the tribe and their memories alive for future generations. And telling this story is absolutely moving about how this individual finds their place in the tribe and then what happens to them during the attack and the battle with the Empire, and how the memories of this battle and the sacrifices that the various members of the tribe make will live forever through these short stories and through these memories that are told by future storytellers and stuff like that. Which to me is very moving. You're dealing with a collection of short stories that are kind of telling about the Star Wars universe, and you have a short story about telling stories, and it's very moving. Trooper Trouble, love this one. This is about a stormtrooper who's deployed to the Death Star, and it's kind of told from the point of view of almost like he's writing a journal. And it's a very interesting story. I love it. Very funny. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a YouTube series I love a lot, Space Janitors, which kind of tells about the life on a battleship in a alternate version of a Star Wars story. Trooper Trouble's kind of very similar, and you get this point of view of like things are just breaking. This trooper has a droid that hates him. He gets along with some other members of his company, but other ones he actually gets annoyed by. They hate all their supervisors. They just have to stand around all the time waiting for these important people to show up. Love it. It kind of gives you a good idea like how dysfunctional the Empire is from these point of view. These people, they've just been drafted in and don't really care. They just want to get paid and probably get out of here. I love this short story a lot. The Chronicler is another really cool short story about the keeping a record of memories and the events. And basically, Mon Mothma has hired a bunch of individuals to interview the various people involved in the Rebel Alliance and to record their stories so the events of this struggle against the Empire can be forever remembered. Because they realize like, some of these people are going to not make it through this struggle. Some people are going to die. And if they die, everything they experienced in this rebellion will die with them. We need somebody to keep a record of this so future generations can really understand what the people involved in this struggle were fighting for, what they sacrificed, and how the events happened. Love this one as the Chronicler, as the one we're following, has a different point of view when she first starts interviewing the various heroes of the Rebel Alliance. And by the time she finishes it, she's like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. I think I want to have a different path for my life instead of just like recording these people's exploits and not really getting a taste of the events myself. I guess that's a good way to phrase it. Really found this one very interesting and very moving as well. And those are the ones I wanted to highlight. There's some other short stories in here I love a lot. I didn't want to highlight every single one I enjoyed. These are some of my favorite. But overall, there's 40 short stories in here. I think probably out of the 40, I probably really enjoyed somewhere in the 30 to 35 range. There was only a handful that didn't really hit with me. But I guarantee you a different Star Wars book reader could read this, and the handful that I didn't enjoy, they could have actually loved, and some of my favorites didn't hit for them. And I think that's the great thing about short stories, since they can try different styles, different types of stories. Like everybody's going to probably find something that really hits with them. So I guess that's my recommendation why I think you should read Star Wars short stories. And for me, a good one that I've enjoyed is, from a certain point of view, Return of the Jedi. So let me know in the comment section below, have you ever read any collections of short stories in the Star Wars universe? Let me know. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please hit that like button. If you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate support. Thanks for watching. I'll see you the next time, and may the Force be with you.